This is Dr. D, and I am back with another chapter in the Stories of Resilience. And today I am so excited to have someone that was with me through my metamorphosis of training, becoming a therapist, and being in academia and all of that. So I'm so excited to have this conversation with Dr. Camille Lafleur. So please introduce yourself and share whatever you'd like people to know about you real quick.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. This is exciting. I am Dr. Camille Lafleur. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Been practicing for probably been licensed almost 20 years. Crazy to think about.
That is.
Yeah, that's.
Oh my gosh.
It's got to be the wrong math. I mean, I currently am an assistant professor in marriage and family therapy at Oklahoma Baptist University in Shawnee, Oklahoma, where I teach several courses and supervise and are working on just building the next set of MFTs to do work in the world. So that's what I do professionally. I have things on the side where I have a podcast that we look at the Black experience in America and pull out some of the mental health pieces and talk about resources and supports that people could look into if they were experiencing trauma or depression, different things. So that has been fun. We've not quite hit a year of that yet, but it has been fun.
I love it. Share the title with people so they could look it up.
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's at you are on the mic. The mic is MIC, so it stands for Melanated Information That Empowers Change. And so we put that together so we can be like, you're on the mic.
I know. I didn't even peep the acronym. I just thought like microphone. I love that.
I love that. So yeah, that's the melanated piece is that Black focus, and then the things that we're trying to do is really impact our community and connect us to resources and being able to recognize, when do I need additional help? How do I know if I need therapy or a therapist or additional supports? And so that is the empowering change piece that we look forward to.
I love it. I love it. And that's so much in line with the resilience piece that I like focusing on. So if you would, can you describe in your own words what resilience means to you?
I think to me, resilience is really this ability to bounce back, to be able to experience something that maybe we didn't even expect, things not going the way we thought they would go, and being able to take that hit, make some adjustments, and keep going. I mean, that's what resilience is to me.
Yeah. Okay.
So hard.
I love it.
That is such a simple question, but it's really a difficult question because you don't really know what resilience is. You see it, you feel it, but to really kind of define it and pinpoint it is the challenge.
Yeah, because it's a process, and it's so broad too. Like it's the existence of the undesirable with the desirable. Exactly. And managing it at the same time. So I get different answers, but some of the themes are definitely consistent when you break it down. So
yeah.
When did you first notice that you were resilient? Or an important time, doesn't have to be the first time, but an impactful moment.
An impactful moment. Wow. I think as a Black woman just navigating the world, there are multiple messages and experiences that happen that challenge who we think we are and what we think we can manage. So a lot of my upbringing, my parents were supportive. I think things were fine. My struggle started in college where, you can't just go to your parents' refrigerator and get what you you're away at school. And so I remember being challenged with having enough money for classes or money for books, and to think that that same student earned a PhD. It really didn't hit me until after I graduated and with my PhD, and was able to look back and really see all of the challenges that I had, and the ability to be able to keep going. I think that was the moment where I just kind of sat back and was like, oh, this was really, I mean, it wasn't easy by any means, and I did it, you know.
Yeah.
Anything I ever imagined that I
You
would
you
PhD.
never imagined? No.
No. Crazy story. So real quick, at the time I was really active in my church in Lawrence,
Okay.
Kansas. And our pastor went and started a PhD in theology or something like that. And
Okay.
at that moment that I was like, well, I mean, he can do it,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But I really was like, it was what put it on the radar for me. And
Yeah.
what would that look like? I'd never thought about it before, ever.
Until like soon before you actually applied for it.
Yeah, that was maybe the year before I applied. So I had completed the first year of my master's program. Maybe it was moving into the end of that first year when he started
Mm-hmm.
the program, and it was like, oh, a PhD? I wonder what that would look like. And literally, I applied to one program with the mindset of, if I get in, I will go. If I don't get in, I'll get a job and I'll work. I'll be a therapist. It'll be fine.
And then you obviously got in.
Obviously, yeah, I got in. Now I understand how lucky that was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, that's
Um,
crazy. So like you, and that reminds me of this quote, like you can't be what you don't see. And so it
exactly.
wasn't until you saw that. So was that like, yes, somebody that you could relate to, someone that was, relatively close to you? It's like, oh, I know him. He's human. If
You're
he could
right.
do it, I do it too. Right.
Absolutely. You're spot on. It's that once you know someone, so obviously there are many other people that have PhDs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For that to be in my circle, someone that I is
Exactly.
what really opened it up. I had no idea what it would take other than hard work. So I was determined to be able, if it's one of those, if you start it, I'm going to finish it.
Right. Type of thing.
But that's that resilience piece as well, where when you start something and it's difficult and it gets hard, you find ways to dig in and really finish and get things done. And that, I mean, that's grad school, that's college to a T.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things difficult, I mean, you figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. And then that I'm hearing you like talk about commitment and also persistence. And those are
Yeah,
main ingredients in resilience. Definitely.
exactly. Yeah.
And one thing I wanted, as you were talking, it kind of gave me a flashback to when you were supporting me during my grad school process. And you were talking about like when you weren't in your parents, you couldn't go to their refrigerator anymore. And you highlighted for the importance of like having sanctuary.
Yeah.
I left New York from a very diverse population, and I was
Mhm.
smack dab in the middle of Manhattan, Kansas. And at the time, I wasn't even in Manhattan, which is a big
Right.
city. I was in Junk City, and I was having such a hard time adapting culturally. And then you like helped remind me the importance of having sanctuary, the importance of having a place where you could go and creating that and like recharging your batteries and
Yeah.
refueling yourself of like who you know yourself to be at the core, because that's necessary when you are in spaces that are new to you, or that where you may be the only one or one of
Mhm.
the few, far between.
Absolutely. I mean, so much of our experience as Black women or people of color, you're constantly having these people that project ideas of who you are and what that
Hmm.
based on what you look like. And so moving and operating in these spaces where we are the diversity, often we need safe spaces where we can recharge. And it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah. So that's kind of starting to answer the next question, which was how did you strengthen your resilience over time? So it sounds like one part of it, I know it's a lesson you taught me and that you just highlighted right here, is like knowing where to go and having those safe spaces to recharge. What are
Yeah.
some other things that you've done to be able to strengthen resilience in yourself?
I think it's taking time to really self-reflect as well. And I think self-reflection, anytime that we're looking at our experience, where we've come from, it requires some grace, to recognize that I don't always do things right, but I do push through and take time to learn, and then, try something a little bit different. And I think really knowing who we are and being confident in who we are plays a huge role in that ability to, be resilient and move forward.
Yeah. Can you tell me or like share if someone doesn't really have like a self-reflection ritual or process, like what suggestions do you have about how to even begin that journey?
Wow, that's a good question. Kind of as a therapist, we know how to just sit and spend time with what happened. So I would start with recognizing experience, identifying experiences that you've had, not necessarily negative, all of the experiences that we've had, and determining how we felt about that when we were going through that, whether we were happy or there was some sadness. And then after identifying that emotion, being able to think about, so then what was it about this piece that made me happy? Or what
Oh,
this piece that made me sad? And what I find is when we get really good at self-evaluation,
yeah.
those emotions really connect to other experiences. And so part of me loving to travel and being happiest when I'm traveling has to do with previous times that I've traveled and been in diverse places and learned new things. And so now it's an automatic trigger of this emotion of being happy. And so being able to sit with experiences and recognize what we felt and why, I think is that beginning. It's that beginning piece.
Okay, I love this because you did it like step by step, so it's easy for people to walk away with, right? So the three steps are recognize experience and then identify the emotion that was evoked through that experience, and then also what was the kind of trigger or what was it that sparked that emotion. Another thing that you said that I love so much that I don't often think about in this way, but a lot, because a lot of times we think of trigger and we think about triggers in a negative sense, right?
Uh-huh.
Like the trigger, it's triggering trauma or triggering a negative emotion, but you are aware of how triggers work, and we could
Mm-hmm.
use triggers to our advantage. And so
Yeah.
I'm like creating joy triggers, and I'm creating adventure triggers, and I'm creating excitement triggers. And that's something that we're like, we know how the brain works. It's about learning how to make it work to our advantage as well and creating the experiences we want. So I love that so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it also connects to resiliency in the sense that it's not always the negative things that help push us through, that make us keep going, but sometimes it's recognizing and knowing what we like and what we want our lives to be like, how, and then being intentional about creating that.
Yeah.
Um, so that can come from those joyous times or good experiences that we've had, and recognizing what triggered this piece and how can I create that for me.
Love it. So, talking about creation, I would like to segue into a lot of the work that you're doing with cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, cultural competence, because a lot of the experiences I know that I've had in professional settings and that you have guided me through was about like learning how to use that as like a skill to create different environments. So can you share a little bit how that culture piece connects to resilience for you in your world?
Sure. So my focus has been, I well, let me say this. Maybe this is important. I've only worked in predominantly white spaces. So even when I was working community mental health, I actually thought about this the other day. There were two people of color that were clinicians at the whole agency. And we were both Black women. And I was a marriage and family therapist, and she was a social worker. And then all of the other therapists were white. And when I think about, some of the experiences, I think at the time I equated to, oh, well, that's my marriage and family therapy systemic view, not so much cultural piece.
Right.
I, but I've learned that by framing things based on my discipline as opposed to culture really came from a matter of us talking about discipline and not ever really talking about the cultural piece.
Oh.
So much of that experience really was about being a person of color and the ways in which we navigate that on a daily basis, and then bringing those experience into a professional realm. And so I've spent a lot of time lately just really focusing on that piece. So my program that I teach in is also predominantly white, and I find I am the only faculty of color in our program, and I teach the culture class.
Shocker.
Right? Shocker. Which is fine because I love it, but I think that is also consistent with faculty of color teaching that class and program. Right. And so what I found is some of the resistance that comes in from students to be able to identify and talk about specifically race. Now, there are other parts of our multidimensional selves like sexuality, gender, that plays a role as well. But often people are more open to talk about those pieces.
Yes.
When it comes to race. And so often with race, there's a political correctness, and people are afraid to offend people and have learned how to talk about things. And so I've challenged and pushed more there because really, Maria, when I first started out, my focus was I wanted Black people to know you can go to therapy. It's not a white thing. We can go to therapy and we can get the help that we need. Well, becoming an educator has made me realize that not all spaces are safe. And so I've shifted some of that passion to be, how can we make sure therapy is truly going to be safe and to consider all of the aspects that people are bringing culturally to the therapy process. And if they're coming to therapy, regardless of how old they are, as a person of color in America, you're absolutely going to have these experiences where who you are has been challenged and what you believe is challenged. And so they have a sense of resiliency when they come, but it requires so much vulnerability that there has to be some safety, and to just avoid the cultural piece misses a piece of who I am.
Yes.
So
and my whole experience.
Absolutely. And so I've been focusing more on helping therapists, those training to be therapists, to understand that importance so that they're recognizing and considering the whole person when they present in therapy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just love like the kind of whole circle theme that's here, because it's like it was you going and pushing through and figuring that all out to then intentionally being a tool in the next generation of therapists trying to prevent that from being someone else's experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say the hardest part about it is people assume that if you're talking about it, you got it down, you're an expert. But I'm constantly triggered and have experiences that continue to challenge who I am as a Black woman, an educated Black woman in spaces with power in some areas, but absolutely marginalized in others. And
Right.
so it's a continual growth process. And I think that is always that lesson, is that we're going to make mistakes, but you have to push through. You have to be resilient and intentional, committed to really being a different person and being open to allow people to be all of who they are.
Right. One thing I wanted to ask you is that you're talking about, being able to push through and being committed and making mistakes, but it's okay, just keep on going. What fuels your commitment or your desire to continue to do that?
Well, I think I believe in I believe in us being the change. I believe that the world in the way in which it is not at its best. And although we vote in hoping that makes change, and we give donations and we do all of these things, but really I believe that change has to start with us, and we have to be committed and really truly believe in that change, and believe that that impact matters. And
Yes.
so, so I have to do the work, and I have to, being a faculty and a professor,
Hmm.
what I agreed to do was also push others to do the
Yeah.
work. And I mean, I believe in it. I
Yeah.
just believe in it.
I love that. So when you're pushing, you are strongly committed to the the drive, right? Like the core, the purpose of it. And so it's not just getting through just for the sake of surviving, but you're being pulled and pushed and fed and fueled with this greater purpose. Like, I want to see change. And so
Mhm.
I will embody this change, and this will then have a ripple effect. But if I don't like it, then I need to do my part in changing it. And I love
Sure.
that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is it. It's believing, truly believing that doing something different matters, that doing
Yeah,
something different makes change.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. Is there anything else you would add when you're reflecting on how it is that you've been able to become as resilient as you are?
I think a key piece is a support system.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to connect to, whether it's family, community, a friendship group, colleagues. We wear different hats. Dr. Ken Hardy talks about having multiple selves, right? So there are different
Hmm.
aspects of who we are. And as a result of those different aspects, we have different relationships with different people and different groups.
Absolutely.
And I think we can draw so much support from surrounding ourselves with people who are strong and open and want to be connected, and being able to use those connections as a support that helps us push through. So, in the beginning, talking about resilience and resilience, for me, it's easy for me to think about my experience and what I did. But so much of my resilience came from seeing people around me push through,
Yes.
and having people send cards and text messages, and absolutely provide support and encouragement when I don't see it. When
Yes.
this is bad, this isn't going to work. Someone else that can say that and push through absolutely is so important to the process. So connection and relationship is what I would add to that. Self-reflection and self-confidence and self-evaluation, all of that goes together.
I love it. So, why would you say it's important to develop resilience?
So sorry, my initial sarcastic answer was, like, do you live in the world? I mean,
And
if
like,
you
you
don't have
must.
some resilience, you're not gonna make it.
Right, right, right.
So that was my initial. Maybe that's a little sarcasm, but I mean, we have to. We have to have the ability to move forward. Things are just going to happen. I believe currently that like we're living in rough times.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about history and reading about civil rights and reading about things that have happened before, it feels like some of the things that are coming around now. And we feel more divided as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of ways to be hurt. There's new ways to get hurt. We have the internet,
Yes.
multiple ways to be impacted. And I just think that so much of just living day to day requires resiliency. One of the articles that I read talked about the increase over the last 25 years for African American youth. The increase in suicide has been phenomenal. I mean, it's amazing. And I
In
thought,
a negative way.
in a
Just
negative
for
way,
anyone.
exactly, yeah.
Right.
I can't remember the percentage. Was it like 75%? I want to say
I don't remember, but I saw those stats as well.
extremely high increase. And so I've thought about what has changed. You know, when I look at Black history, we've been resilient. We've had horrible things happen across time, and
Right.
we're still here and still successful. And so I think there are ways in which we don't recognize things that are eating away at that resilience. And there's so much pain and hurtful experiences that are happening that
Mm-hmm.
we have to figure out a way to help people understand this happened, but this isn't the end. You
Right.
push through this, you can connect to other people, use this experience to help you be better.
Right.
That's what life is. Life isn't,
Right.
a good life isn't no bad things happen.
Exactly.
A good life
Yeah.
is whatever happened, you made it work and kept pushing.
Yeah. For me, that's like the part of resilience that I identify with the most. Like whatever you went through, looking at those raw resources and figuring out how can I use this to my advantage, or how can I become wiser because of this, or how can I build off of this. And yeah, with what you were saying, like all the new ways in which we are being hurt, all the ways in which we are being attacked, these
Mhm.
are also new ways that we can connect to each other. They're also new ways that we could build each other up, that we could protect each other, that we could create those sanctuaries in person and online, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
The final question is, who would you hope that your story of resilience touches?
Like, is it too much to say everybody? I mean,
No.
it feels too much to say everybody. Um, I think this kind of message is really helpful for people who are hurting, and feel like the experiences that they have are just weighing down on them, and they don't know where to start or what to do. They don't believe things will get better. And I think it's important to have stories of resilience to connect to the strength that people have and believe that we have those as well. And then, like, specifically, I've always kind of had a soft spot for kids. I used to be a preschool teacher.
I
Taught,
didn't know that.
didn't know that. I taught preschool for 2 years after I graduated with my bachelor's, and
Oh,
like was a daycare helper. I mean, so I've always worked with kids. And then when I started practicing, I really liked working with adolescents.
mm-hmm.
And these stories are things that they need to know, that they
Yes.
need to hear, that this is what life is, and we push through. We were able to connect. We're able to find what works. We express what we felt and how we felt, and are able to recognize how to use that to go forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story of resilience with me. And one last time, if anyone wants to learn more about you and the work that you do, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So actually, so we're on Instagram at you are on the mic, MIC. And then also we're on Facebook, and it is MIC and then it's melanated information that empowers change. And so a lot of my, I won't say free to extra time, passion coming through with the work that we're doing with that podcast, hoping to help just people understand how therapy is helpful and how experiences really do impact us, and that sometimes it's helpful to just talk about those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and control the way we process those experiences. Yeah.
It's very hard. So I acknowledge it's hard work. I'm the kind of therapist that says, yeah, I acknowledge I make my clients do hard things, and I acknowledge that I hate when I need to do hard things too. But in the end, it's always for the better.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. I'll see y'all next time.